Leader of the Opposition.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, 23 ambassadors have denounced the smear campaign against Richard Colvin. These former ambassadors have stated that the Colvin affair may create a climate of intimidation and bullying throughout the Canadian diplomatic service. When will the government stop being showing contempt for these people, and when will it stop intimidating Canadians that try to shed light and tell the truth on these cases of torture? The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Characterization that the member opposite makes is quite an exaggeration, even a fabrication of the actions of this government. We've seen our military men and women in uniform do an outstanding job. We've seen our outstanding members of the public service, both here and in Afghanistan, work hard to ensure that we bring peace and stability to a very difficult part of the world. Mr. Speaker, our officials and our military have always, when presented with credible and substantiated evidence, taken the appropriate action.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, not just the diplomats, but Canadian military are not being listened to by this government. Field notes by Canadian soldiers make it clear that a detainee was beaten in Afghan custody after being transferred by Canadian troops way back in June 2006. Our soldiers saw it firsthand. They took photographs. They did the right thing. They rescued the man. They reported it up the chain of command, but the government did nothing. What kind of Canadian government refuses to act on first-hand accounts by their own troops, credible accounts of detainee abuse in Afghan jails?
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Let's be very clear. Let's talk about the facts. The then Vice Chief of the Defence Staff, General Walter Natinchuk, a decorated war hero, Mr. Speaker, someone who has served our country in uniform for decades, has said the following. He stated very clearly, and stated more than 2.5 years ago, that the Afghan in question was not detained, was not captured by Canadian forces. And he repeated that statement yesterday. I say to the Leader of the Opposition, why can't he trust General Walter Natinchuk?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
But, Mr. Speaker, the issue is much simpler than this. It's an issue about what happens when Canadian soldiers report credible accounts of detainee abuse. Those accounts are not in question. They take photographs of the abuse. They report it up the chain of command. And for a year, the government does nothing about it. That's the issue. Why won't they account for that year in which they did nothing?
Honourable Minister of Order, the Honourable Minister of Transport.
Let me be very clear. When our Canadian men and women in uniform doing an outstanding job in incredibly difficult circumstances are presented with credible information with respect to this regard, Mr. Speaker, they act. They have acted in the past. They did an extraordinary job, and the circumstances in which the Leader of the Opposition described, it was not even a Canadian detainee, but they still did the right thing. They still acted, and that's why we're so proud of our men and women in uniform, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable